Okay, so now we're moving on to step 4. Step 4 is basically the hub installation. What are the hubs? So the hubs are basically going to be what we're going to connect the DC motors to the wheels. That's what we're using to connect the DC motors to the wheels. So as you can see, that's like an axle or a hex shape there. I'm not sure if you can see that, but possibly if I do one of these, you'll be able to see that. Probably not, but there you go. It's a hex shape there. So the hubs come in a separate little baggie. Now make sure not to lose any of this stuff, because there's actually 4 small little pieces in here, and that's what you're actually going to use to tighten the hub onto the axle, or onto the, basically this little sucker here that comes out of the DC motor. Now the DC motor has a flat, the little part that comes out, it has a flat side and it has a round side. Where you're actually going to put these on and tighten it, or the parts that you actually tighten onto here, there's 2 screws that are going to go into the hub. You're going to have to basically put those screws in line with the flat part of this area here. So let's go ahead and open this up and just kind of spill it out on the table. Again, be cautious not to lose these little pieces. There's nothing worse than getting a robot kit and then losing a piece. One of the bigger problems about the robot kits is that these are custom pieces. They're not really sold in stores or in Radio Shack, believe it or not. Radio Shack doesn't have a lot of these pieces. So as we can see here, there's 2 holes. I'm not sure if you can see that or not. Okay, and those 2 holes, you're going to put 2 of these guys in. So as you can see, those are fairly tiny, and they're basically little screws that you're going to have with you're going to screw them in there, and they're going to be tightened with an Allen key. Now what I like to do before I do anything, and I'm not following instructions on this one, I'm just doing my own thing here, is I pre-screw them in just slightly. That way I make sure I don't lose them. And I'm going to go ahead and use the Allen key that came with the kit. Looks like it's the smaller Allen key. That's exactly right. And just lightly screw them in. Do not tighten them all the way, otherwise you will not be able to put the hub on. Again, this is not in the instructions, this is just something that I'm doing so that I do not lose these little pieces. That's it. Give it 1 or 2 turns and we're done with that one. Now I'm going to do the other one here. Now make sure you know that they aren't necessarily easy to screw in. They slip around a lot. Notice how I'm putting them on the Allen key first, then I'm just kind of pressing them up against the hole. Also make sure that since they're so small, it's easy to put them in wrong, and you could mess up the threading on either the hub or the actual bolt or screw. So make sure they go in. They're supposed to go in nice and neat, no wiggle. I'm just checking the first one here because it went in a little too much and it was too tight, I thought, or too difficult to screw it in. But there it goes, it seems to screw in just fine. So there we have it. So I've put those now both on the hub, and now what I'm actually going to do is just kind of slip these on with the screws, knowing where the screws are that I put in, and finding the flat side, which on this case happens to be here. When I say flat side, notice, I'm not sure if you can see it there or not, one side is flat, that side there, the other side is round. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to just slip that on. And as I slip it on, I'm going to go ahead and tighten it slightly. Now it doesn't say here how often. Let's see. It says leave a small gap between the hub and the actual motor. So what I do is I start screwing these in. It's going to wiggle around a lot. But I start screwing these in until I feel it tap. And then once it taps the axle that it's on, I wiggle it around to make sure it fits right. And it's mounted right. And then I give it a good Good turn. And we're tightened. I'm going to repeat the same step for the second one. And what I like to do is I like to leave the same amount of space on both sides, on this one and on the other one. So there we have it. Notice how I left a little bit of a gap there. That's important. It'll move easier and freely. Also, always check to make sure that it's nice and tight. Now I'm going to repeat the same step here. Find the flat side. In this case, it's upward, so it's going to be a little bit easier for me to screw it in. And I'm going to just kind of eyeball it. Again, this doesn't have to be exactly the same. Just make sure that you have the gap, and that when you tighten it, there we go. Has a slight bit of wiggle, but nothing to cry over. Now this one here is being a little challenging to screw in. Sometimes that happens. Maybe you get a little bit of gunk in there, or that particular one wasn't drilled properly or tapped all the way through. But either way, just tighten it up, and you'll see how that will slip on right away.